It was when winter began to die, a bleak and cold late February, that I first heard them. The driveway to my house had snowed over during the day, and I walked slowly, savoring the way my boots imprinted into the virgin snow, how I changed my surroundings with each step. As I took out my keys to unlock my door, I heard scuffling footsteps behind me. For some reason, I thought of children, maybe because the footsteps were light, or because of the way they slid and jumped through the snow, enjoying the last few scraps of winter. I turned to say hi, my neighborhood being littered with packs of children playing in the street any and all hours of the day. Yet the driveway was empty. Nothing but cold wind and slow-falling snowflakes. I could have dismissed it as my daydream had I not noticed the circle of small footsteps in the snow. I was creeped out, to say the least. I was a teenage girl and not even a particularly brave one. I had seen enough horror movies to decide I wouldn't be the stereotypical white girl who died in the first few minutes of the film. I just slept inside and slammed the door after me, before curling up on the couch with a blanket and my cat, Oreo, a name which my poor sister chose and which, unfortunately, my poor cat was stuck with. She purred softly as I stroked her ears, and I browsed Reddit to distract myself. I sent a message to a group chat with my friends about the footsteps, but the responses were mixed, mostly consisting of either bullshit, okay, big mood, or that happened to my grandma. We found her dead in her house, and her cat had chewed her face off. Alright, that last one I imagined, but that didn't stop me from glancing up every now and then, in fear of seeing a little blonde girl with ponytails and a bloodied dress, or similar horror movie cliché staring down at me. It must have been half an hour before I noticed the black and white cat standing on the carpet in front of the couch. Her back bent at an unnatural angle, emitting a steady stream of hissing sounds. I jumped up, quite violently, throwing Oreo away. She landed next to the other cat, at which point it became apparent how identical they looked. Not one hair was different, and yet neither seemed to notice each other. Instead, they had both turned to me, hissing, and standing so perfectly still they could have been taxidermied, had it not been for the noise. I backed away slowly, feeling close to hysterical. Keys jingled at the front door and I whipped my head around towards the noise, before turning back to the cats. Only Oreo stood there. Her back fell down from its violent arch. Her legs dropped and she lay down on the carpet. The hissing was the last to leave, transforming into a soft purr. What the fuck? I whispered to myself, running a hand through my hair. The door opened, and from where I stood I saw my older sister step into the house and yell a cheerful, "Hey!" Jenny took off her coat and her shoes and skipped over to the fridge in the small kitchen next to the living room, in an incessantly good mood. She noticed me staring and arched an eyebrow. "Are you okay, Emma?" She popped open the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the table. Jesus, you won't. It's fucking messed up, okay? Just don't look at me like I'm crazy, alright? But it was probably just a hallucination, but for a second, I swear there was another cat just like Oreo in the room. To my surprise, Jenny laughed and dug a pineapple slice from the plastic carton. Sometimes if I'm really tired, I think that I see two of something. No, wait, that's just when I'm fucked up. Oh my god, you're high, aren't you? She pulled her face closer and stared into my eyes as if to check for dilated pupils. I swatted her arm away and she grinned. Fuck off, I'm not in the mood. Somehow through my irritation, my irritation at my sister seemed to dull my fear, and my memory of this surreal event seemed hazy, unreal. I flopped down on the couch, took out my phone, and submerged myself into the familiar world of the internet. The rest of the week was regular, if not plain boring. It was only the next Friday that I heard them again. The snow was melting, turning the ground into a mud that swallowed one's foot with each step. I was running to my house, holding a physics textbook above my head to protect myself from the rain. Of course, I then realized I had paid $80 for that book and tucked it into my coat instead. The whole street was empty and silent, except for the constant pattern of raindrops and my feet hitting the ground as I sprinted. The quiet made me notice the footsteps right away. Just like before, I knew they weren't children's. I turned my head. Nobody was behind me. Was I going crazy? It would be such a cliché if this was the movie trope where it turns out I'm a patient in a mental hospital, just daydreaming everything. I stopped and turned around. I could just about discern footsteps in the mud. Leave me alone. Fucking leave me alone. I suppose I looked crazy, yelling into empty space while the cold rain bit into my skin. I started jogging again, still clutching the heavy book on my chest. I heard footsteps, but they only prompted me to run faster. I flew into the house and shut the door behind me, breathing heavily as I sank down, boots trailing mud into the hallway floor. This time, I stayed far away from Oreo, ignoring her meows. Instead, I curled up under a blanket on my bed, shivering and twitching periodically. I heard the jingle of keys again. I looked out from under the blanket to see Jenny walk in. "Hey." She reached into the fridge and took out a fruit salad, popping off the lid. "Are you okay, Emma?" "What the fuck?" I blurted out. Outside, everything was snowed over. The mud was gone, replaced with pristine, white snow. Jenny took out a pineapple slice and ate it. "Oh, sometimes if I'm really tired, I think that I see two of something. No, wait. That's just when I'm fucked up." "Oh my god. You're high, aren't you?" She pulled my face closer and stared into my eyes, as if checking for dilated pupils. I swatted her arm away. "Wait. No, I didn't swat her arm away. And she couldn't have asked that, because I didn't tell her about the cats." But there she stood, amused, and still holding her goddamn fruit salad. I shook my head, rubbing my eyes and breathing heavily. "Jenny, what did you mean by what you just said?" But Jenny just stood there, smiling, holding the plastic carton in her left hand. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I screamed. She didn't move, but for a slight strain in her smile. I pried the salad out of her hand and threw it on the floor. I stared down at it, my hands trembling. "You okay, Emma?" she said. Jenny stood before me, holding her fruit salad. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it. And however much I was scared and confused, I lay down on the couch, took out my phone, and stared. I held the phone above my face, even when my hand trembled with exhaustion and I struggled not to drop it. I couldn't pry my eyes away from the screen. In my peripheral vision, I saw Jenna. She popped open the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the table. I stared at the phone. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it. I stared at the phone. She popped open the fruit salad and sat down at the table. I stared at the phone. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it. I stared at the phone. She ate the lid of a fruit salad and sat down at the slice. On and on until dusk fell, and with it my hands seemed to lower on my own accord. As soon as the opportunity came, I ran up the stairs and into my room, slamming the door behind me. Outside of the window, children ran through the mud and the rain inside their homes. "Emma, have you considered maybe Going to the doctor?" My friends all nodded along and dug into their lunches. I slammed my tray down on a table in the canteen and sat down. "Oh yeah, sure. Hi, sorry, is this the doctor's office?" "Yeah, so you know how sometimes days seem to repeat themselves? Literally. Yeah, and sometimes you don't move to the past, and you hear footsteps when there are none, or you don't know. Wait, the mental institute. Forever? Well, shit, guess I'll just kill myself." I mimed hanging myself while my friends looked over skeptically. "Emma, look, we all love you and all, but have you considered that this is actually a delusion, and having some medicine for it would help you?" "Sure, I'll ask my sister." "Oh, wait," I smiled condescendingly. My friends rolled their eyes and moved on from the discussion. The day was warm, but a solitary snowflake fluttered into the palm of my hand. The days passed as most days do, chronologically, that is. I spent most of them at friends' houses, afraid of what would happen if I went home. I was almost certain my hallucinations were gone, though, until the middle of March when spring was just barely opening its eyes. As always, I was nearing my driveway when the steps came to me. They seemed more urgent this time. Faster. I willed myself not to turn, but my head seemed to do so on its own accord. I stepped behind me. The steps behind me stopped. Yet there, on the gravel, lay two small shadows. They seemed to move in the breeze. As I started to back away, the shadows seemed to move closer and stretch as my viewpoint changed. One of the shadows dipped into a crack in the road, and in that moment, he shattered. Pieces of the shadow burst out, scattering on the road like leaves in the wind, puzzle pieces I couldn't solve. I turned around and ran into the house. I didn't even bother to shut the door behind me. I waited for her to come, for the keys to jingle. "Jenna, stop, look at me." I held the fridge closed as she tried to reach in for her fruit salad. "Tell me what's happening. Do you remember it too? The day that repeats. Why is this happening, and who are the footsteps?" She said nothing, but those were tears in her eyes. "Is it just this house? Is it a curse? Am I just fucking insane?" She shook her head, popped open the lid of a fruit salad, and sat down at the table. "You okay, Emma?" She sobbed. "I see. Two of something." I gripped her shoulder. "Why are you repeating this? Please." Suddenly, her head shot up. It's glitching, but I can see the code." She jabbed at the air in front of her. I started walking back, tears falling from my eyes as I cupped a hand in front of my mouth. What? What's glitching? I don't understand." She seemed to just appear in front of me, gripping me by the shoulder and staring me in the eyes. I'd never seen her look so disheveled. My sister had been mild and calm, not whatever this was. It is glitching. It's glitching. Do you see? You and me, we're smart. We can see this. We can see the code. We can see it glitching. It's glitching. Do you see? She looked at my face, at the fear in my eyes at seeing my sister like this. She gently swept a rogue tear from my cheek. "You okay, Emma?" I let out a sob and turned my head away for a fraction of an instant. In that moment, Jenna sat at the table. She took out a slice of pineapple and ate it, and ate it, and ate it, and the air around me seemed fuzzy, wrong. I turned to the open door outside. The snow glittered underneath the settling sun. Oreo walked over to me, and I picked her up, crying into her fur. Without a warning, she hissed and bit me, squirming in my arms. I jerked and dropped her, only to see 4 identical cats on the carpet, backs arched and faces contorted in snarls. I ran for the door, shaking. The second I was outside, my head cleared and I slammed the door. Behind me, there was only a dull crunch as the door met resistance. I turned slowly, fighting a rising nausea. Black and white fur was caught between the heavy metal door and the doorframe. It was supposed to automatically close, and even now the door was straining to close fully while my poor cat cried. I screamed and opened the door, letting the cat fall to the ground. There was blood, but I didn't know where it was coming from. Her ribs seemed so wrong, and her legs were twitching even as I saw her jerk in pain with every movement. I picked up her broken body, cradling it. Jenna ran to me, staring at the cat in my hands. "What the fuck did you do? Why did you kill her?" She seemed in shock, mouth agape and face pale. I didn't. She's not dead. We can save her. We have to set the ribs, I think." I touched the broken mass of the body and the cat yelped in pain. I sobbed, and the movement made her cry even harder. Oh God, Jenna, what do we do? Please." I held out the cat, whose breathing turned raspy and yet disgustingly wet. Jenny took a step back, turned her head and vomited on the stairs before our house, on the previously pristine snow. I cried harder, tears streaming down my face. I fought the urge to throw up on the cat. Everything seemed hazy. I only remember the cat being gently taken from my arms and a sickening crunch as I stepped on a branch in the driveway, which sounded too similar to the snap of Oreo's spine. I hope I didn't step on her. There were tufts of fur in my shoelace later. "Mom and Dad, oh God, I'm going to tell them how you fucking put her between the door before you slammed it. I saw you, you fucking psychopath." Jenny was screaming now, but all I could think of was that I was so glad that she hadn't reverted to the thing she had been before. I put a finger on her hand, and she flinched. "Jenny, I swear I didn't. It was following me, and I ran, and I got caught, and I didn't mean to." And we cried together, before burying the body in the backyard, and crafting a painfully small wooden cross to mark the lonely grave. There was no eulogy, only a sullen silence and a ring of small footsteps around the grave. I didn't have to ask Jenna to know that she saw them, but she didn't dare talk about it. I didn't go to school. For an entire week, I stayed in my room, shaking at every sound of footsteps. Mom and Dad seemed absent. I didn't know whether it was just my imagination or if they actually stopped coming home. The days bled together, monotony spreading through my life like a cancer. No one answered my texts. No one picked up their phone. I was alone. It must have been spring, but the calendar was always open to the end of February. And every so often, when I looked at them in my peripheral vision, the trees seemed to be covered in a dusting of snow. It was Saturday when I decided to walk outside. An early evening. The air warm and the world humming with expectation. The sun was still up, but as I stared at the cloudless sky, it twitched from side to side every so often. I decided to lower my gaze, staring instead at the still green grass covering our backyard. I squatted down to run my hands through it, rolling each strand between my finger and my thumb, heavy dew making the strands bend like hunchbacks. For a second, it seemed like I was holding human hair, long and blonde in my palm, and I felt it all over me, inside of me. I jerked up. I turned my head, coughing and retching up a tangled mass. There was a clip in the shape of a ladybug attached to one of the strands, and faint screaming in the background. I shook my head. I knew I couldn't stay inside forever, but all of this, it seemed so wrong. There was nobody outside. None of the little kids running about shouting. All of the houses on my street had their curtains closed and blinds shut. I shut off the fear, the overwhelming feeling of wrongness in the air, breathing eventually. I knocked on the neighbor's house. Some part of me, the cowering little girl inside, wished that no one would answer, so that I could just run back into my room and shut the world out. But there, a rustling in the curtain, and footsteps behind the door. It creaked open ever so slightly, and I took an involuntary step back. It had been days since I had interacted with someone outside of my immediate family. The woman inside, Miss Bailey, didn't step out. "Hi, I'm sorry, I was just wondering whether something's wrong. It seemed like everyone's hiding. I mean, it's stupid, but..." I started, only for the door to slam shut. Her voice was a gravelly whisper, and I barely caught the words. "Don't ask anymore. The foot glitch. They won't tell you. Only awake." Her voice switched suddenly, as if a button was clicked, and it seemed normal then, maybe even too cheery. "Go away now then. I have dinner to prepare." "Wait, Mrs. Bailey, do you also see the snow?" "Go away now then. I have dinner to prepare." And so I did. I went away because Mrs. Bailey had dinner to prepare. And even when I considered walking to the other house or just walking out anywhere where there wasn't snow and neighbors with closed curtains and older sisters who took out a slice of pineapple and ate it and took out a slice of pineapple and ate it, took out a slice of pineapple and... I wonder how long it's been. How long I had stayed in my house. How long the food never ran out and the school didn't ring. My friends didn't send me worried messages, and yet I didn't want to go outside. The thought repelled me. Just the mere idea of opening the front door and walking outside made me want to vomit. I don't know what day it was then that I walked downstairs and saw Jenny curled up on the living room carpet. She had her knees firmly pressed to her chest, her head buried between them, and was rocking back and forth, weeping quietly. I approached her hesitantly, because I'd never forgotten the look in her eyes when she told me that it was glitching. Some days, I could see her stand outside my bedroom door, her form breaking the steady stream of light coming from the hallway into my room, still and quiet with a bowed head. Those days, I usually just ignored her, pretending I couldn't see her shoulders shake and her fingers claw at her long, scraggly hair. And in the morning, I pretended I couldn't see her broken fingernails or the small bald spot she always tried to comb a thin layer of hair over. Today, when I saw her on the ground, I couldn't ignore it. However, it terrified me, the way Jenny was acting. She was my older sister. It wouldn't be right, I suppose. I don't know whether it's callous, but the main reason I helped Jenny was that I feared I would become a bad human being if I didn't. At this point, I didn't really care. I approached her quietly, as one might do with an injured animal. Slowly, I extended a hand over to her and brushed my fingers over her shoulder. It felt hard, as if everything but the bones had disappeared from underneath her clothes. She whipped her head around so quickly her neck cracked, and I jumped back. She looked like Jenny, but it's as if someone had taken out everything inside. She looked hollow, and I worried that just touching her again might make her collapse. I thought about how long it had been since I last saw her, but I can't remember. Every day was the same, except sometimes Jenny was downstairs and other times she wasn't. My hand flew to my mouth, and she reached an emaciated hand out to me. Her cheeks had sunken in and her eyes were empty, mirrors and pools swimming with tears, nothing underneath. I took her hand, rubbing the cracked skin with my thumb. "Hey, Jenny. Jenny, are you okay? I love you. You look so sick. When's the last time you've eaten?" "Oh, Jen, we've got to go to a hospital," I whispered to her as I pulled her close, wrapping my arms around her frail body. She shook in my embrace, and I loosened my grip for fear that it'll snap her frail bones. if I loved her too much. Just for a second, I felt that I was holding the too heavy body of Oreo, and I jerked back, pulling her along with me. We stumbled on the carpet and fell down together, my hands still locked around her frail body. I closed my eyes in hopes of shutting out the sickening crunch and covering my ears so I couldn't see her tiny body hit the floor. Except the sickening crunch was a tree branch, and my hands were locked around her, and she was the oldest sister. My sister was older and had a pineapple in her hand, except there was a sickening crunch, and she sat down before me, on the carpet. She hadn't arched back just like Oreo had when I dropped her, except she was weeping rather than snarling. I had let go of her, I suppose. And then, in her arms, cradled like a baby and swaddled in fabric, which looked like my mom's favorite scarf, was a gun. Shit! I scrambled back. Jenny, what are you doing? How did you don't have a gun. What the fuck is happening? She convulsed for a second, shaking and bending over to vomit nothing onto the carpet floor for a second. Then she lifted up her head and cocked it to the side, breathing rapidly. Emma, you have to fucking kill me. I choked and my hands flew over my mouth. Somehow, the fact that she swore shocked me just as much as her request. I had never heard Jenny swear before, except for when Oreo... Except then. Emma, please. The gun. I took it from her quickly, not because I wanted to shoot her, but because I was terrified she would do it herself. Her fingers brushed the trigger with a moth-like touch, adorningly, lovingly. I stood up, but then immediately sat back down, my legs shaking and weak. Jenny, I'm not going to kill you, Jenny. I won't shoot you. I repeated it, and even in my head, I had a constant anthem of don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot, as if I was worried that I would absent-mindedly murder my sister. Why not? She stood up then, with confidence that I didn't expect. Her eyes stared over me, around me, under me. Where's Mom and Dad, Emma? Where? You know where? I shook my head. She said the last question with the same tone I had heard her use on the students she tutored, a simpering, borderline patronizing tone that usually made me roll my eyes or throw a sly middle finger in a direction. Somehow, though, although she looked frail and weak, I felt compelled to listen to her. You know where? They're here. They're in the house, in the basement. I shot them. It was loud. I know you heard it, but you stayed in the goddamn room like always. I shot them because they begged me to, you understand? They begged me, and I did it. I'm not a fucking coward like you. She spit at my feet, and I watched the trail of saliva from her chapped lips to my blue socks with butterflies on them. I wrapped my arms around myself, dry heaving and weeping at the same time. When I looked up, she was still staring at me, her head cocked and saliva slowly dripping from her chin to the floor. Why did you kill them? I whispered. Because that's the only way to get out. And with that, she took my hand in her skinny fingers and pushed the gun into her chest. Do it, Emma. She looked outside, her eyes wide. It's snowing again. I think I like it more when it's snowing. I tried to pry my hands away from her, but she seemed stronger than she usually did, even as she shook with fear. I wish it wasn't true, but the only thought running through my head was that I didn't want to be alone. I couldn't be alone. She couldn't be so selfish as to leave me trapped here. I can't do it, Jen. I love you so much. I was crying, but my hands were steady as I pried the gun away from her. If you loved me, you'd do this. You'd see that I'm suffering. I can't. They're in my head, and don't. It's glitching. Don't do it. But I can't hold them off any longer. and every day is just the same day in hell. I'd rather die, so please. She shrieked and grabbed her head. Why can't you do it yourself? Don't you think I fucking tried? Something stops me from pulling the trigger. Emma, please. I love you so much. She clawed at her head and convulsed, alternating between reaching for my hand and pulling away from me. My finger brushed the trigger, tantalizing, slowly, a lover stroking their parent's hand, a gust of wind like a butterfly kiss. It occurred to me then, and I ran from my room and locked myself inside, pulling the curtains shut over the picturesque winter landscape, locking the door. I could hear her breathing and moaning behind it. I sunk to the floor, burying my head inside my knees. The gun was still in my hands, and my sister, I didn't know, because there was something inside of her, something that made her want to kill herself, and something that wanted to stop it. Except for the love of God, I can't figure out which is my sister, and if I kill Jenny, or if I kill her, then I'm alone. If I don't, then she's here with me, and I don't know which idea terrifies me more. It's still glitching. Everything. My phone works, but no one ever replies. There's no one. No one. There's no date, no time. The clock hands spin and stop and spin, and I can still hear her moaning and breathing behind my door. Voices whisper to me. I had to try to write this, even though there's no one out there. There's no one. There's a circle of footsteps in the snow below the house, and every morning I wake up with the curtains open when I closed them the night before. Please, if anyone knows what's happening, help me. Help my sister. I'm terrified, both of her and of what's happening. I'm 13. I don't remember where I go to school. My house doesn't have an address anymore. If you hear the footsteps, it's glitching for you too. Follow them. Find me. Help me. Please help me. It's a glitch and I can hear her screaming. And the sun is gone. It's gone. The world is snow and footsteps, and I'm Jenny. She's dead, and I'll shoot her, and I will. And she popped open the lid of a fruit salad, and it spilled out on the virgin snow. Help me. It's glitching, and I'm dead. 2 days ago, I found this journal at home while cleaning out the attic. Neither me nor my family have ever seen it before, but out of curiosity, I read the whole thing. The date inscribed in it is May 24th, 2019. Last night, a circle of footsteps appeared in my front yard, the shadows of the imprints bleeding into the snow, and I think when I hear them, I should follow.